Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Beyond the Pale. I am your host, RB Ham. Nice to see you guys here. Tonight's going to be a very interesting night. My co host is Beata Van Berkom, the tinfoil hat lady. Thank you for co hosting, Beata.
Hello, yes, I'm happy to be here.
And my esteemed guest today, who is going to give us a good education, I think, folks, and we all need it, is Sheila Hunter, Sheila McFarland, and her organization at shelaw.ca, and I'll show you that in a bit. But could you just give us a little quick introduction about yourself? What got you off on this journey, and how is the journey going? Do you think we're waking up enough people in time?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I started on this journey full force at the local level. I've never been in the provincial or federal interest, but I have been very active at the local level when I found out about the United Nations Agenda 21 back in 2004. I was in Kincardine. A friend had given me the original documents that came into town, the municipal primer of the unsaid conference and the local Agenda 21 documents that came in that were instructing mayors and councillors to change their government over into this sustainable new world order government. So I got very active in 2014. I ran for ward councillor in Kincardine to stop the nuclear waste being buried by our Great Lakes here in Ontario. And my husband, my late husband at the time, he ran for mayor in the adjoining town to try to take this agenda down, get to the table and stop it, because we saw the things that were coming down the pike. We both experienced just gross election fraud at the local level, and how it's just literally impossible to get in. And even if you get in, it's literally impossible to stay good. And even if you want to stay good, it's literally impossible to do anything because you're converted into the wrong animal or jurisdiction as soon as you get in there by the oath process. So we lost a house in foreclosure in the meantime. So I'm very familiar with insurance fraud, and I'm the broad that calls the frauds, really. Um, and 2018. My husband took his life. He had gone down all the rabbit holes of the birth certificate fraud and the banking fraud. The reason why he ran for mayor was to end the foreclosure fraud, because he knew that a proper mayor sworn in would have more authority over a bank in the area. So he was, and he was right. And the power of a good mayor, we're seeing the power of global mayors and strong mayors. We can flip that back into a good forum now, which is why I've stepped back in 2020 when COVID hit. I saw that this was Agenda Sustainable Development Goal number 3, which is equal health or and access to whatever to for all, and how it translated on the ground. I attempted to speak up then directly to my mayor, Cam Guthrie, here in Guelph, who is the global covenant mayor of the world. He represents pretty much Canada, as a global covenant mayor, which is way beyond purview. So I attempted to meet with him informally to help him get out of the global agenda in Guelph. He didn't it just went way over his head. 2022, I went to the truckers convoy to witness what they proved was that Canada was under de facto possession by the United Nations. That's what the truckers convoy proved. And I can walk that through. That's in one of my publications. And so after the convoy, I immediately came back. I gave my cease and desist to my mayor with all the information saying, hey, you've got to do something, because this is whatever. And he ignored me. I know there's no solution in the courts. So I just ultimately, the following fall in 22, I ran against him for mayor of Guelph. So I'm on the ballot for mayor of Guelph, and I can challenge that election, which I'm in the process of doing. I haven't started per se. What I felt was a better way of approaching this was with the way I'm doing it now. So in 2023, I released the POG primer that's on my website. That is shelaw.ca, shelaw.ca. All my information is there on the United Nations, all about your local level of governance, all about your mayors and your councillors and what they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to be doing for you and how they got captured in this agenda and how we can easily take them out. And if they don't want to come out, how we can easily replace them. So I just want people, I want to start now getting a little bit more out there to let people know there's nothing to worry about now. Don't worry about trying to learn procedures and notices of liabilities and even running for independence and PPPCs. It's like this is all we're witnessing now, a currency reset that's happening. And it really is, the timing is impeccable that we can now restore um, law and order and peace just through restoring our local levels of
Right.
governance. So
Right.
that's kind of where I'm at now. And just releasing my second publication, which is the POG protocol, because lawyers never stepped up. And because they're just as trapped in the system as we are.
Sure.
So now I felt the best way to handle this in a controlled kind of demolition, since we are in the middle of a currency reset, is to just meet with some sitting councillors or sitting mayors that are already in position at that table. If one of them would re-oath anywhere, then we could restore that one level and set the template so that other towns can unincorporate as well. And that's all we're doing, is we're restoring towns back to their unincorporated trust status from their, right now they're acting as corporations, and that's de facto governance. That's what it's called. So um,
Right.
yeah, I don't know where you want me to start, or where the level of
Well, I was just showing everybody that you go to shelaw.ca, and this is the
yeah, in there I have a radio show every Sunday morning at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time AM. I don't expect anybody to be up at that time, but they're all recorded and all archived, both on my site and on Revolution Radio. My shows are an hour long audio. I'm just casually talking through, what I'm doing and what I've done, and what the solution truly is. That if I was in that mayor position, if I won that election, how easy it would have been to, and can still be, to just invoke the trust institution instead of being dumped into municipal corporation. So we're seeing that out there with the ostriches, and the situation there is they have no say, they have no policing, they have no arresting powers, they have no courts really, as is because they're captured under a crown legal services system, which is the federal and provincial level, and then the local level is captured under the provincial umbrella through the municipality structures. Municipalities and municipal corporations are not levels of governance. They are used to absorb that third level of government in. Canada has three levels: federal, provincial, and local slash municipal. They always put local slash municipal, and they do that for a reason. And one of the charts there that I sent you, RB, with the outline of how Canada is a constitutional monarchy, but that only defines the two levels. Um,
okay. So here we
okay,
go.
yeah,
Let's let's disable our cameras, and you can walk us through this.
yeah, so this is the key to my information, and this is how I believe we exit the global agenda safely and simply, and just using actually two men, because it was, or two positions. It was only two men that put you into the global agenda. The mayor, your elected mayor, who is supposed to be a public trustee in your area, and the CAO, which is the Chief Administrative Officer of your municipal corporation, your city corporations. Those two people, the CEO and the CAO, can get into a secret room and sign anything they want. And we saw in COVID that they can actually put a needle in your arm, and you have no way of stopping them. Right now, we're seeing that they can cull 400 ostriches, and we have no way of stopping them. And that's because these two men have been able to make an agreement and at that local level for that postal code of that farm. So once we pull that third level out, that third level of government, you'll see it's called a township and it's called an area government. It's not part of Canada. You look at the Canadian Charter, and the Canadian Charter, there's the structure of it. You have the sovereign king who defines the federal and provincial two levels. Then the federal is one umbrella, the provincial runs the next. This is where the legalese, weasel words, and the lawyers they do a bait and switch on us. In the charter, it says that the provincial government has jurisdiction over municipal institutions. Well, institution is a muni speak weasel word. Institution is actually defined as a trust made in common law. It's not incorporated per se. A corporation is a business. So the provincial government has jurisdiction over municipal corporations that they run and control, and municipalities that are under their umbrella. Absolutely, because they're registered to that provincial government. So really, the municipal acts should be saying the governments of the municipal corporations. So what happens is these municipal corporations that are your cities of, a city of Guelph, right, is one of them. They're your service and non-government organizations in your town. They're control that business there is controlling your entire election. Okay.
Right.
This is how it gets flipped. So your city of Guelph, they had me join a portal. I had to register to run, and then ultimately they interfere with all debates, all locations, all issuing of the ballots, all counting of the ballots, all destroying of the ballots, blah blah blah, and ultimately they switched the vote on me. I won in Kincardine. The night I won 769 to 133 over my incumbent. The next morning they switched the numbers, and there was nothing I could do. And yeah, I have like, I mean, this is how they're just blatantly, we can't deal with these people. So I've done 20 years of studying this, and actually 35, because I worked with lawyers in the 90s in Toronto, and they trained me, honest lawyers trained me of how they dupe everybody, how they dump us into the legal system, and we have no hope in hell of getting out. We're all
Okay, before we get to that part, can you? I want, because I'm showing this on the screen. Can you explain what the idea, the idea of crown corporations, and where does that put us?
what a crown corporation is.
Yes.
Yeah, well, crown really means it's just a legal fiction. It's crown in Canada just basically means Her Royal Majesty the Queen or the King. Canada is a registered municipal corporation on EDGAR, SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, and the provinces are just subsidiaries of that crown corporation level. So it's a business like McDonald's and Walmart. That's what crown means now. Once upon a time, a crown was a sovereign. Kings and queens were sovereign and ruled the land, but not anymore. These are registered corporations, all incorporated under commercial law and controlled by the World Economic Forum, the central banking system, etc. So again, we lost law because everything got dumped into legal. So when that government of Canada now, that when it says at the sovereign at the part, that's supposed to represent King Charles, but it's not. He's a business now.
Okay, so the structure of the local area government, that this number 3 spot here you have.
Yeah.
Is this how they get in from the number 2 level into the number 3 level, is through the courts and land registry?
No, they get in through the municipal corporations
Okay.
controlling the election. And then they pull that third structure, that whole thing, the mayor, the township with his you, which is you, the clerk, the treasury, all your courts, everything. They pull that third level into the municipal corporation's government. So it would be pulled into underneath that provincial jurisdiction. And that's why the ostriches are having a problem is the province now has control because that third level has been absorbed. So
Okay, so well, for instance, David Eby, I don't know if he's just doing this for, it actually came out and said that he thinks the CFIA is being too structured or too regimented in their view. But it seems like he's pleading. David Eby is the premier of British Columbia, and he's pleading to the CFIA not to be so harsh. That kind of shows you where the power is, doesn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And the power actually, the whole power structure has gone wrong. If Canada was truly a sovereign country, then those would be sovereign public administrators. So Dave would have control of the whole province. He'd be the fiduciary of that province. So he would have ultimate say. He wouldn't have to bow down to anybody, especially a committee of amateurs. So this is where we have to restore the levels, but it has to be started at the local level, I believe, because that's where we lose it. This is the true structure of what local government is. It's a trust institution that you have with your mayor. Your mayor is a trustee. You elect him to be the local area public trustee to administrate your public affairs. And public affairs just mean anything that you jointly share. So your roads, your sidewalks, your schools, your whatever that you're sharing. But not your private businesses, not your private children, not your private affairs. They just govern the public affairs, which is basically anything in that all caps or the legal person. And I don't want to talk over people's heads, but this would be the structure of what a true de jure third level of government is supposed to be, was once upon a time. This got usurped, and this is how we lost control of our money. The mayor would be the head of that local area, head fiduciary. So he would be head of that trust fund. He would be the chief executor of that trust fund, so that when locally you had services that you agreed you wanted done, $1 million on your road, you would authorize the mayor, okay, release the funds, and the mayor would just be the executor of those funds. He wouldn't decide what kind of roads you get or whatever. He's actually both at the top of the rung and at the bottom, because in true governance, it's the people that decide. He would be the head magistrate in that area, meaning he would be the law. Mayors were sheriffs. They were the reeves of the shire originally, and shires were just the community area that needed a reeve to oversee, protect, and serve that area, and ensured that the law of the land was enforced. Right now, all that's being enforced are commercial policies, which is legal, Sea of Commerce, Admiralty stuff. So this is how we lost our sheriffs too. They all got incorporated. The law got incorporated because you just lost your head magistrate, the chief justice of the peace.
When did
Well,
it?
this is why people can't find law.
When did this happen in Canada? Because I remember back in 1959,
Yeah,
my grandfather was the mayor of Hanley, Saskatchewan,
yeah.
when the Queen came to visit, and he escorted her through town and all that stuff. At that point, were mayors incorporated by? At that point in the 1950s, did it happen
Yeah.
before that?
Yeah. Actually, everything just kind of got all flipped and reset at that 1929 to 1933 time.
Right.
That's where everything basically, whether you were unincorporated or incorporated, all of it got dumped into the Uniform Commercial Code, which is your UCC
And
rules.
they used the depression. They used a manufactured bank crisis, a bank, Wall Street going bankrupt at that time.
Yeah, a
It
bank
was
run.
manufactured, done on purpose. They got the depression they needed, which led to three things that they wanted most.
Yeah,
That war, and under war you can declare emergencies, and you can take take over that stuff. And even before the war is even started, you can, like what Franklin Delano Roosevelt did in 1933 when he made holding gold illegal. And so he
Yes.
got a hold of the gold, and when the people don't have gold, they don't have any power left, right?
Well, gold ensures your sovereignty, or your value, your ability to participate. So yeah, 1931-33 was a total reset where Canada Inc., the Crown Corporation, actually kind of was a restructured Hudson Bay Company, and
And
it
I just want to quickly interject. This happened. This was not something local, something kind of like random. It was
no,
across the whole world. Europe went through it same time as the
yeah.
United States did, same time as Canada did, same time as Australia did, same time as New Zealand. It all happened at the same time, and it kind of proves the New World Order was already there.
Oh, this is going back way, way back. The Agenda 21 that Canada signed on in 1992, which was the launch of the final implementation of the New World Order. That was the final one. They've been trying to implement New World Order and by crashes and resets for a long time. But we're now in a different time, though, people. Like, we're now in the age of Aquarius. We're now in Revelations. We're now in very, very different times energetically. So this is why it's very important that this information now comes out, because I believe I can save people a lot of time and money. And the sitting counselors that I'm meeting with also agree. And lawyers, retired lawyers and judges have also confirmed my information, is that unless your town unincorporates at this local level and restores their trust institution back to what they were. Yeah, this is an example of what an oath of an unincorporated mayor would take. And if you notice in it, he would have to take it before a justice of the peace. Right now, the city clerks are issuing a declaration to our mayors. So, number one, it's not an oath. And number two, they're not a justice of the peace. So there's a lot of election fraud happening at the local level, and I walk through this in the protocol for people, just how they do this. So in the actual oath, you'll notice that the wording doesn't matter per se of an oath. It's just that is who are they? Who are they? Are they a man or a woman swearing? Are they swearing in law or under a bylaw? And what do they promise to do? Well, faithfully, discharge the office. And then so help me God is just basically stating their liability, that if that they're in trust law, which means they're in full personal liability. They're calling God in as their witness, that if they breach the trust, then the covenant is breached and they can expect karma and liability. And then the second part of that Towns Act states that if a mayor or a councillor does not take their oath, that prescribed township oath, within 10 days of election, then they're de facto and that seat is vacant. So right now, all your local councillor and mayor seats are actually vacant. And so this
Wow.
is why it's pivotal, a time that we can either, and what I'm saying to these councillors and mayors when I show them this, the jurisdiction problem, that they're in a municipal government instead of a local government. And yeah, this is another comparison, is a municipal government is incorporated area. It's commercial under the Agenda 2030. So it uses legalese, which is a crown registered language of the bar and lawyers, where public means the property of the crown. Public means it's publicly registered and traded. So you have no hope in hell in municipal government, like, at all, because you're just a crown property in there. He or she who creates controls. So you're stuck in, that's why you can go into a 15-minute city in that structure. Um, and then over in your local farm structure in an unincorporated, though, it's a trust environment. It's more like a farm and a family, where the area self determines their services. They have private land and property, but they have public accounts where they can, share and do the services accordingly. There's no weasel words. Everything is spoken in plain language, and where public means it's open to, or it's paid by, or supported by. And so therefore, they who create will control it. The people control the direction of their town, the services that are provided. So this is where the problem is. People think they're in a local government and have a say in their men and women. No, they got put into a municipal government. And this is why I couldn't work with Maggie Braun, is she's doing municipalism over globalism. and by talking to this de facto setup on the left, she's actually creating joinder and ensuring that the agenda stays on in that town. What
Yeah,
I
can
do, what POG does, is it clarifies jurisdiction by the but saying to the cities and councilors and mayor, saying, "Are you on this municipal farm or are you on this public local farm?" And they know they're stuck. They can say they're on the local one, but then they have to produce their oath of office, and they can't. So, which defaults them that they're in the municipal farm, which means that local mayor councilor seat is vacant. And so, this pushes them into the fact that they've got to either stand up and invoke that local government, or they're going to be replaced because the candidate that ran against them in the last election can step in and challenge the election as being de facto, and the mayor operating under a de facto fiduciary title. So
Okay,
this
hold
is,
on one second before we
oh,
go any
sorry.
further. I wanted to dial it back a bit because
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this because as a truck driver, I've delivered to a lot of Hutterite Mennonite communities, and I go into those communities, and it seems to me that they're under. Are they in that? Are they running an unincorporated local government themselves right now?
Oh yeah, yeah, and they
They're
got
showing the
screwed.
way.
Yeah, they kind of got screwed in COVID because COVID was implemented using commercial laws, so they weren't really allowed to be their true unincorporated private beings because they were slammed in under this commercial umbrella. So yeah, they're private. They're just a private association, and this is how we're all to operate. No, we don't bother anybody. We do our own thing. We share services like roads, and originally municipal corporations were only supposed to be in charge of two things: tying all the plumbing of the peoples together so people didn't have to worry about their own wells, and tying all their sewage together so they didn't have to worry about their shit houses. And so they merged together, formed a trust company, pooled their money, created a service corporation that could build the water pipes so they could join their water and their sewage. But that was all a corporation was to do. And then they started doing the roads, and then it's just morphed into this where all of a sudden they can give you pharmaceutical advice and put a needle in your arm. So it won't
Well,
get any better.
I know a lot of these. I met a lot of them while I'm doing all my truck driving, and they were, of course, the biggest supporters. These Mennonites and Hutterites, people like that, the biggest supporters of the Freedom Convoy, and
Yes.
they really loved us. When I go and deliver there, they don't know who I am, and they say thank you and all that stuff. It's really great, and they're really good. And I keep thinking. Because when I asked them about the vaccines and stuff, they said, well, a lot of the people went and got them voluntarily because they kind of believed it,
Yeah.
but some of them didn't. Like probably
Yeah.
more than we think didn't do it because they weren't forced to. Like
No.
no no no, no ambulance with police guards drove into the Hutterite communities or the Mennonite communities and went around force vaccinating anybody.
No.
It
They're
didn't.
not crown property. They're not registered crown property.
So it seems
And
to me that they were they were in a very good spot to fight
yeah.
back.
Yes. Yes.
But when they held church services, then they got hammered.
Yeah,
Bizarre.
because they're in a commercial building,
Wow.
like on a postal code, and the postal codes.
When Herbert Hildebrandt got fined for holding um, um, those church services, I thought that was on their land and that it was their building, and that there would be no jurisdiction. But they still got fined and got and were convicted.
Well,
How
it's
does
not their land though, RB. That's crown land. 90% of Canada is registered crown land. There's only 10% private land, and it ain't just churches. They were captured, and the little community churches and pastors and parishes, they were captured under this postal code overlay Roman system too.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah,
I was trying to think of some good news because same thing happened in Alberta with Grace Life Church, right?
yeah,
The province cracked down on them, and I go, how is that possible? I mean, in a country where we're supposed to have religious freedom, I just don't understand it. But
no, we're on.
because their church is considered crown land,
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You look it up, Google how much crown land in Canada. 90%. It's all registered. Anything that's registered, anything that's all capsed. They don't do the final land transfer when you buy a property. That's why your mortgage says you're a tenant, or you're tenant in common, or a joint tenant. You're with the crown. The crown has to hold land pub in title, legal title, and you are granted beneficial title or beneficial interest in it, and you basically only own the structures on the property. So you own the house that you built, or that you there, but you don't own the land.
Okay, for American listeners, the corollary, their corollary to our crown land? They have something else, but it's
They're
called.
crown land too, I believe, because they're no different than us. They never, you know,
But they don't call it crown land because supposedly of course, they're no longer. They got rid of the
Under the
king,
crown.
became a
Yeah.
republic. Isn't it called something else? Federal, I think they call it.
yeah, federal means
Federal.
crown,
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
it's federated, or it's incorporated. So no, this is what I think Trump is doing. He's trying to republic and pull all the private and all the his public securities out of de facto possession, and republic the country into this structure. But he's doing it at a bigger level than I am. I think it's far simpler to do it at the local level, because you stop your mayor from signing anything, and boom, you've stopped the agenda, because
Yeah.
nothing can go forward.
So I have this next slide up. It's called municipal government versus local government,
Right.
and you
And this
talk
is
about the Constitution defines two levels of government: the
yeah.
crown service jurisdiction, but something else. This belongs to the local people. Can you explain that?
Okay, well, if people look at the charter, or any of the definitions, like I say, Canada is a service jurisdiction. It's a corporation with service jurisdiction over this land mass, with two levels of government. But on the land mass is the actual level of government, which is that third level. That third level has geographical jurisdiction, which means it's land jurisdiction. Okay. In the government of Canada, they have service jurisdiction, but just over real estate, or just over crown property or property. And if you look in their definitions, when they describe it, you'll notice with the weasel words is they don't say that it's land. They qualify the definition of land. But anyway, this is where your land rights are in the third level. How we lose it is, if you notice in that municipal corporations that's under provincial control, that's who your municipal clerk and your municipal CAO work for. They're hired by the province. They're sworn to serve the province. You don't elect them. You don't appoint them. You can't touch them. They're incorporated, and they're bringing the provincial agenda, which is the United Nations agenda, into your town. They're bringing that template to the city council tables. It's not your mayor that's doing it. He's just a patsy.
Yeah.
So now you see that municipal clerk and municipal CAO, well, they're in control of the entire election. So as soon as that mayor gets elected, they'll automatically put him into that municipal government, and boom, he's stuck under that province. When that mayor does that, he pulls the treasury with him. So there's all your public securities, and all your properties go in there. He pulls in all the land titles, and so they get dumped into the Crown Land Registry. He pulls in all the county courts, which are your local people's courts, and they get dumped into the Crown Legal Court system. And so this is how everything gets captured, and how everything easily can be separated once you restore your local level. This was an article that I did in Druthers. I've got 3 articles in Druthers that people can look up. This was my public notice that I issued to my mayor, and I handed this to him, and he's got this. But again, the mayors and councillors don't know what to do, and they're under a big beast, a legal system and a United Nations system. So they're really appreciating the information I'm bringing now, because it pulls them out of de facto possession without them having to resign or challenge the beast at all. So
That's great.
Yeah, it truly is a very simple way, because what I did is I'm just undoing where the problem started. I'm a math major. I went to the University of Western Ontario and I majored in calculus. And
Mhm.
I've always thought in numbers. I've always thought, A to B. And in calculus, when you multiply multiple numbers together, and you've got the columns and you've got an error, you have to trace your steps back to where that error was made in order to correct your calculation. So what I did is I traced this back to where the error is made, and it's made at that local election level. It's not made at the provincial election or the federal level anymore. The federal level was finished back in 1992, which is what the truckers convoy proved. That Canada is not operating as Canada. It's operating as a United Nations member state. So when the provinces are all subnational United Nations member states. So we
So,
actually have a duty to pull out of this now.
so does that mean that if Alberta and Saskatchewan separate, we're still involved with this or not? I
If
guess
they
I'm
sorry,
trying to-
if they, I don't think they can. Quebec tried it. I don't think they can. I think they have to republic into a sovereign capacity, as opposed to try
right.
to go back to a de facto provincial structure, because the
Right.
original Canada's original structure was forced here. These were white British colonists that came in and took over the natives, took over the land. They did it through Hudson Bay Company and trade routes, and
Yeah.
then they just morphed into this. So as far as Alberta separating, I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is how it's going to happen: is people republic at the local level, then they'll reunite at that provincial level and do a constitution there, and then they'll reunite perhaps at a federal level. I believe we only need two levels. One, your local level, to make sure you've got your money control and you've got your private men and women protected, and two, a provincial or a state level that can combine services and highways and all of that stuff. But the more levels you get, the more confusing and the more pounds of flesh they need and out of control. So
Right. Right.
this is kind of where I'm going from. I know it sounds very different to people, but it's actually restoring it to the way we used to be before the crown took over. And it's
Right.
not attacking the crown, it's just correcting their status. They're only a service company here on the land, they're not a government.
So the status correction is the main thing.
Yes, starting from you, right?
Yeah.
You have to correct your status. I'm sorry, I'm not a citizen of Canada. I'm not a registered crown subject. I'm not a registered resident of the municipality. I'm a woman, right? So you first off, you correct your status as being a private sovereign entity and not an incorporated entity. And then, we correct the status of our representatives, that
Right.
who we elect to represent. If they're going to represent us, they act as trustees, which keeps them in law and full accountability and transparency. As soon as you incorporate them in a business, I see it like, like McDonald's is right, or Walmart is that. Right now, mayors are basically Walmart greeters. They're not
Right.
mayors. They have no control. So all they can give you is what they're selling in Walmart, which is in the city of Guelph or in the Muni Worlds, and that's all they can do. They're really compromised, and again, this is why they're really appreciating this information, because it upgrades them to having the highest authority in the area, but in full transparency and doing what the people need them to do. So they'll go from actual global zeros to local heroes overnight when they do this. So I actually think I have one counselor all ready to go. I meet with him next week in Northern Ontario. He's got a group that was getting ready for the 2026 election. Um, uh, in Yeah, he was getting a group. He's a sitting counselor now. He's got I'm I think it's 6 to 8 counselors, and he's got people all lined up ready to go in as counselors. It's a very small area, so they would be elected, yada yada yada. And he is very well liked, and he is going to run for mayor. And I sat down with him last week, only for a couple of hours, No, sorry, it was early, a couple of weeks ago, and they're just all excited because I said you don't have to wait for the next election. Like I said, the seats are vacant. That this sitting councillor could step in and swear in as the mayor, as the head authority, and then
Oh,
these people that are ready to go, they could do a notice process to the sitting councillor and swear into that council seat as an interim trustee to stop the de facto possession of the area, and they would just stand there and challenge it, and then from there, I don't believe we're going back into the elections because that's just mob rule. A trustee is appointed, so you would have almost like a panel of six people that you would want, and it would be based on integrity and morals, and not on who's the most popular. And then also the oath ensures though that they stay working for the men and women. So
right.
it really, there's the only place that can recognize you as a man or woman is locally. Your mayor is the only one that can recognize you as a man or a woman. They're not, when we run for mayors and councilors, we're not running under a crown structure. We're not running as liberals and progressives and all that stuff. We're
Right.
running as men and women to be a trustee, to govern your public affairs, which means to administrate your public security on how you want it to be administrated. And that means your money. So you would actually send me your bills as a mayor, all your all caps bills, so your rents and your taxes and your hydros and your tuitions and your mortgage. You would send me those all cap bills to the office of the mayor, and as your public trustee, I would discharge those bills off of the public security that I'm holding in trust in the trust institution on your behalf. It's
Wow.
separate from the municipal corporation. It's in a separate treasury outside of the municipal accounts. So, and then if there was an administration problem, like if you got into greed instead of need, like you sent me a bill for a Ferrari, the trust instrument might say, sorry, you can't. I supplement your needs, and I'm there to support those, but if you want anything extra, then you privately need to go and do that. So it's actually a beautiful system once it's restored, and then people have automatic money. They have the
Wow.
ability to engage in commerce. They don't have to operate under their SIN numbers or their postal codes. I take, as the mayor trustee of that all caps name, I'm your legal representative. I'm your power of attorney over that all caps. You wouldn't go to court. I would go to court on your behalf because I speak the language, right? And this is how people are getting screwed over in court. They're going in, they don't know they're standing when they're going in. They're registering as a citizen or resident, crown property. They don't know the language that they're speaking. When they say person, they mean, an entity. And you think, like, so don't even bother going in there. You've created joinder automatically. That's your mayor's and your counselor's job, is they will represent that all caps legal capacity if there's a problem. If there's a private problem, like you promised to cut my grass and you didn't do it, then I could take you to the county courts, local courts, that would have the juries of peers or the grand juries or whatever, and say, hey, tinfoil hat lady took, she didn't cut my grass, she took my $50, she did all this, and then we could solve it within our own town county court automatically, and you wouldn't be able to do it again because the jury of peers would be people from the area. Law really works out well, and so you could have your own private commercial contracts enforced, but the public ones I would take care of, because you don't know what that's all
So,
about.
so then you would take care of RB's tickets, COVID tickets.
Yes, yes, yeah. Well, they wouldn't happen in the first
It wouldn't
place.
happen in the first place.
No, because there was no. It's actually a breach of trust or a breach of public
Right.
security when they issue that ticket to
Yeah.
you, and
Yeah.
you're actually committing identity fraud by saying that you're that all caps, you own that all caps name. That you're actually saying that you own the birth certificate bond, and so there's a whole bunch of stuff going. So you wouldn't be able to be issued that ticket. What would happen is I'd just say, hey, look, take it up with my trustee, because you're the beneficiary, you're the child, kind of in this setting, like a trust fund, right? So you're not making these contracts, you're just traveling on the road, as a man or a woman. We can still leave cars registered per se, so that we have It's just when law is reinstated, you don't really have to go into all this commercial nonsense. Lawyers get involved, and they're there to break the law, right? They're the snakes. The natives knew that. Man with forked tongue came in, and he would say one thing, and he did another.
So it's like the law and the legal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, law is do no
Lawful.
harm, do unto others. Agreement, it's consent, and oh yeah.
Oh, you're muted.
Mhm.
Sorry, I was going to say, one sec. So your mortgage is with a private bank,
Yeah, you wouldn't have a mortgage. What you would do is you would just decide on whatever house you wanted. You would purchase it, and the bill would go to your mayor, and he would discharge that off your public security. Your security is to be used to provide for all your needs. So you wouldn't that mortgage is actually a third party interloper that the banks do. They create a fudge fund on the ledger, so your mayor would discharge whatever home you wanted. You wouldn't get into a mortgage. You wouldn't get into taxes. You wouldn't get into any of that nonsense. You just let them know what you want done.
but this public trust you're talking about requires money to back it up, right? If you're going to, so you still would have to pay. You have to pay some kind of, how does the mayor have the money to take care of all these beneficiaries he has? How does
Well,
he have?
there is no money for one thing. This is a debt-based economy, and everything's just done in tokens and credits like a casino.
Right.
So it's all electronic. So he's actually we have that birth certificate is kind of like a bond or like a credit card of billions of dollars, quote unquote, that you just charge to. So there's no actual money happening here. It's a set off and a discharge happening with a ledger. So it's a charge and an offset, and a charge and an offset. It's more it's not, yeah, it's hard to explain, but
It's like an offer, and I see your offer.
yeah, yeah. It's we've got banks that are trying to take a pound of flesh on private agreements. Like if you wanted to sell me your house or your car, let's say your car for $1,000, we should be able to exchange whatever. There's a bill of sale. I got proof that and we shouldn't have to. The state shouldn't have to interfere at all. That's how they get in. The third party, they get involved in our marriages by registering the marriage. They get involved in our kids by registering our kids. And they get involved in our schools because the school boards, trustees are all registered too and have to obey. So you wouldn't have a mortgage. The birth certificate, originally, you're supposed to be able to claim that when you turn 18. When you are ready to govern your own financial affairs, you send a notice to the public guardian and trustee, which is called an expressed will. The public security that they establish, that birth certificate bond, is transferred, and that you can set that up in your own private trust. So and then you take control over it. But we're not allowed to do that because they've captured that system, and the bonds are held. So we now you'll never ever get your true registration statement of live birth, but it doesn't matter. It's backed by your credit, by your labor credit. So you use it almost like a credit card to discharge any of your bills. So
So
yeah,
what
so
you're saying
when
is
you
the
turn
best way for all of us to access this is to make sure our mayors are giving the right oath.
Well, and it doesn't even need to be the mayor per se, because I understand it's a tough political system. You need a fiduciary, you need a trustee, because you can't act on behalf of that all caps name. You don't own it, that legal title. You need a proxy, and that's the problem with people is they're going into court thinking they own the name, or they are the name, or they can speak to the name. That legal title is registered and owned by the crown. And I've got this in the protocol is that so anytime you use or you say you're that all caps name, like when you register your house saying you're that all caps name, and you're using a title that's not yours, and that's why you're getting taxed, and that's why you're getting fined, and that's why they're penalizing you for using property that you don't own because you didn't claim it when you were 18. So you're actually saying that that house that you own, no, that's registered to the Queen. You don't own it. You're trying to claim property that's not your own. So this is why we lost our foreclosure fight in 2012. Well, ultimately, they took the house in 2015, but we started fighting in 2010. Is that we couldn't get it out of that crown on property, right? It was land registered. You We couldn't get off the land no matter what we did. And my husband Art felt the only way to get off the land was to get a sheriff. The only way to get a sheriff was to make a mayor, a reeve. And the only way to make a reeve, since they're all captured, is to get in that position and ensure the right oath was taken to become a trustee fiduciary of that area. And then, so why he ran when our house was in the middle of foreclosure was that if he could be mayor and swear in and be that head fiduciary of Huron Kinloss,
Right.
then he would be the fiduciary of the land the house was registered on, which is a fraud, right? Crown doesn't own that land. He would be head fiduciary of the building, the house that we built, because it was registered in the all caps. And he'd be head fiduciary of me and Art himself, because as the SIN number on
Right.
that property. So the bank couldn't come after us or the property or the land, because it would be held in trust by Art the mayor
Right.
in the trust institution where it's supposed to be. So he would be able to stop TD Canada Trust in that position, and he knew it. But there was no way we could get in, and he ultimately killed himself 4 years later.
Oh, so
So this is why I do what I do, is I'm trying to save people a lot of time and a lot of research and a lot of money by saying you just need to get that one linchpin out of the system, pull them out,
yeah,
reinstore the law, make him what he's supposed to be, put him in charge,
yeah.
and you got
Wow.
your right, which is what the Wizard of Oz was. Is we look at this big screen municipal monster scary thing, and he's making us go out and get brooms and shit and go out and do this and kill this, and we're coming back and saying, well, we did this, we got the proof that the ostriches aren't sick, we got the proof that COVID is a farce. But they don't care. That big scary, he can't hear you. Oh, I
Yeah,
want you to go and put in a rainbow sidewalk instead. Oh.
that's right.
Right. So what we're doing now is we're saying that you're de facto, dude. You're fake. You're a fiction. You're a crown fiction in a fictional world. Let's pull this curtain back, because our real mayor is back there, and he's got the levers, but we're the levers.
Right.
Right? We can control that man once corporate veil is pulled back. So I
Yeah.
believe that wizard was actually a mayor. And I
Mm,
believe Rothschild, who was Meyer Rothschild, maybe Rothschild was a mayor originally too, and he realized the power of a mayor as a banker.
Yes,
Mayor
he was actually called as a honorific the mayor of the
Yes,
city.
Rothschild. Yeah.
because a mayor is a banker. That
Wow.
trust institute, that office of the mayor is a bank. And that's the
Yeah.
only way you're going to get your money, control of your currency, is get that bank back that can hold your property out of away from the crown, queen, and king that are coming after them. And then
Like
keep
the
your
banks of
children.
the river, the banks of the river and the current and all that.
Exactly. Get
Yeah.
out of the sea of commerce, get out
Mm,
of that currency, and get
mhm.
on the land into a trust institution in common law, where it's real men and women and real land, instead of crown fiction and property and real estate and pretend shit. So
Yeah.
this is where the POG protocol now is exposing the local election fraud. One, the mayors and councillors are in the wrong jurisdiction, in the wrong capacity, in the wrong office, and on the wrong agenda. What that creates is a breach of trust, because they're breaching the trust institution, and a breach of trust is big. that
Mm,
that's that covers all realms. As soon as you get into breach of trust, that terminates everything. But again, we're still in a legal system, so we can't terminate it. That leads to a breach of public security. In other words, we're funding bioweapons based on them letting them access our birth certificate bonds. So we have a duty We have a duty to pull these securities out of de facto possession. And this is the best and simplest way. And it's all inclusive. One mayor can do a whole area. He can set the template, and another area can replicate it. When people try to do this on their own, forget it. They'll never get off Crown land. They'll never get out of the system.
So you have like a protocol, a
Yes,
workshop, a template for communities to adopt this. This is what you're doing. Yeah,
I've spent the last year doing the protocol and getting it down to about 22 pages. It reviews, like I said, the breach of trust, the breach of public security, the fact that there's de facto possession of all our judicial courts, all our arresting powers, and all of our police, whether it be the local bylaw to the provincial officers to the RCMP. All of those have been captured in this Crown system. And then also the last fraud is that our POG emergency powers have been captured through the charter. We should be able to call a peace, an economic emergency now. You know, we got homeless, we got people dying, but those powers have been captured under the Crown. They put them in the charter under Section 91 saying, oh, if there's an emergency, well, that falls under federal jurisdiction.
wow.
No, it doesn't. It
Yeah.
falls under the mayor. The mayor has control of that area, and he can decide whether it's an emergency.
And this is why the Gates Foundation came into our city here, Saskatoon, and somebody sent out quick pictures from the Zoom they had or something about making it Maskatoon, and we're going to give you prizes and blah blah blah. Oh, what are you holding up there?
This is what all mayors were
Yeah,
forced to
emergency.
sign. Okay, the
There you
corporations
go.
were forced to sign an emergency declaration form. I've got this on actually it's in the primer. Mayors were
Okay.
forced to sign this, and you'll see the mayor signs as head of council, and then below he signs as a mayor. He was never sworn in as mayor.
Wow.
And then beside him, Scott Stewart, the CAO, signs as a final signing officer for the area. And that there launched the Bill Gates injections. That's established. The mayor here transferred geographical jurisdiction, like as the sheriff, into the service corporation to say, okay, you got service jurisdiction now. You can run stage 3 clinical trials with these experimental mRNA injections in this geographical area to these postal codes and these residents. That's how they did it. So if you don't get your mayor, stop being a head of council and signing as a head of council, a de facto trustee, breaching your trust, you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. Like right now, a mayor should be able to go into that ostrich farm and say, get the fuck out of here.
Exactly.
Any
I'm just
chief should be
this
able to
explains.
say, any native chief should be able to say, get the fuck out of here. Sorry for my language, but this is how serious it is. And this is how simple it is. You separate these two men that they're not able to get in a secret room and decide this nonsense.
Yeah.
You're done.
This
And when I showed counselors that they can now be a mayor and they can sign an emergency order as a mayor and terminate everything in that area, and how happy people will be because they'll send all their all caps bills. They're all of a sudden, they're not paying rent. They're not paying their mortgage, but they're not going into default. They're doing it the way they're supposed to. So this is why I'm saying it's like, and so I've never really agreed with getting this information out to a lot of people and a lot of people trying to do it, because you can't do it individually. You just need one specific trustee to do it. Let's leave the structure in place. Let's first start to get a sitting councillor that's at the table now, or a sitting mayor. And I'm going to be up in Huntsville and re-meeting with the mayor of Huntsville there, who we did a deputation to a year and a half ago. And I believe she's ready to move now because she knows she's screwed. They all know they're screwed. Because my notice process in the appendix is, it's a simple notice process of saying, notice to admit you're a trustee, and they can't, you default them. And there's 4 ways to default them. Very simple, even just a notary defaulting it. And then you can set up your own trustee with your all caps. So you could pull out yourself individually. So I'm not releasing the notices in the appendix initially, because they're very powerful. And as soon as the councillors see this, they know that they're screwed, because any constituent can give them this notice and say you're de facto and I'm pulling out, and then they're done.
Well, this is like the answer.
I know.
This is the answer.
I know.
So,
This
I
is
mean, I just applaud your passion and thank God for you. Thank God for you because
it's
this
not
is
it's just I was my husband was able to see that piece, and he went
right.
down all the financial stuff of everything that everybody's he was Skyping with Santos Bonacci,
Oh,
Skyping, oh yeah, Heather Tucci, Kate of Gaia, Dean Clifford, Robert Menard, all of those guys.
Robert Menard and I are friends. Yes.
all pulling together. I don't know whether he Skyped with Menard per se, but we were pulling Menard's information in the bursting the bubble stuff, and so my husband was brilliant and traced it all back. That hey and this was before COVID proved it, which is why I jumped in
Right.
after COVID. Is like, oh my God, he was right. It just took the
Well,
mayor.
and this is what you're right about this being the perfect time as people are waking up, you know.
Yeah.
It
When I
is
launched
very
yeah, when I
yeah.
launched this in 2023, it went way over people's heads, and
Right.
that's why they kind of knew there was something funky going on at the local level. This is way over their heads, which is why I didn't do a lot of events, and I went across the country to meet with people that know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
So I'm ready to get them in place in every province that can do this strategically too with their mayors and councillors. And I know there was actually two mayors in BC ready. Was it Merritt and Mission or something that were ready at the time, but I wasn't there at the time. So this
So
template can be used for all of them, and actually
yeah.
this template can be used for any state or any county anywhere, because the global agenda was a commercial contract, and it showed that they could do whatever they wanted in Geneva, and boom, it would be on the ground in 2 weeks, launched. So
And so people could just get a hold of you right at the website, right? Like I mean if I was in a town somewhere and I needed you, I could just go to your website.
yep, emails are the best. Like I say, all my
Mhm.
information is there. What I suggest to people now is start to pull together in your local areas and start to talk to your counselors and mayors. If you have a counselor or a mayor that knows they're in trouble, that knows that they're at the wrong table in the wrong jurisdiction and harming the area, and they don't know how to get out, I'm telling those people to contact me, not individuals, because I can't, you know, my
Okay.
work is specifically with the officials, and if the officials don't move, or we have a problem, I'm going to the candidates, and this will happen within 2 weeks here in Ontario, and I believe I've got somebody already next week. Like I say,
Wow.
it will be very, and also this information, once it's launched, anybody's next local election, they will know that there's a choice of that candidate to go into the municipal corporation under a declaration of office, or that candidate can invoke the trust institution and take an oath of office. So even in your next local election, I don't believe they can get into that de facto capacity anymore. So this is actually trying to speed up the process. It's offering lawful redemption to any sitting councilor or mayor now that accidentally legislated a bylaw to put an injection in a 12-year-old that died overnight. Like, that's a lot of karma. But if
Yeah.
they voluntarily pull out, then they're offered lawful redemption. They're waived of anything that they did previously unknowingly, and they're invoked into a public status, which means they're fully transparent, fully accountable. Got to balance the books every year. If they breach a trust, out they go, because you've got a direct contract with a trustee, as opposed to this fake thing that you have through this corporate election process. So it is unfolding right now, but I believe we should do it in a controlled demolition with people that are already in place. They're at the council table now. So they're in the city halls now. They can start forensic audits right away. They can start canceling public-private partnerships right away. Like I say, they can harbor those securities and start discharging debt right away, cancel any of the financing, housing agreements right away. So it's best if we do it with somebody already in place. But if they refuse, 10 days, out they go. They can be replaced. And when you say, RB, at the start of the show, that there's no enforcement, well, the mayor, a de jure mayor, brings the law, becomes the sheriff, sworn to the men and women. as a under a trust oath.
This
So
is like my dream of a jubilee.
yes, this is the year of the Jubilee.
Yeah.
2025 is the Jubilee.
Oh,
The
wow.
motu proprio was signed in 2013 by Francesco. The UCC was foreclosed on in 2012 by the One People's Public Trust. Trump closed or foreclosed on the Federal Reserve and absorbed it into the Treasury in
Treasury, that's right.
2017.
Yeah.
So all of this is in alignment with the planetary and all of that. And so this is the true, well, in a way, and this is now we're the munchkins are rising and knowing that there's something wrong. They've been in this commercial system, living in Walmart and or in Plato's cave, looking at shadows, and we're really supposed to be outside playing and laughing and growing and building and
It's time to
enjoying
be alive.
ourselves.
This is crazy. This is
So
great.
if you can get a mayor and councillor to get out of that cave,
Yeah.
reinstate the law, and then be able to pull everybody out of the cave once they see, oh shit, I was in a cave. You really don't have to explain anything anymore. So the mayor would swear in the councillors under as de jure trustees to act for the men and women as legal representatives, and then the mayor can swear in a sheriff under law. And then the sheriff can appoint a deputy sheriff, and then any bylaw officer that wants to re-oath and pull out of the corporation and come and re-oath as a peace officer, they can do so now too. The sheriff would swear them in, and and same for the provincial police, and they would be sworn in.
I
And
have
then
some notes here. Policy, police, peace officer.
yeah, police. If you look at the word police,
Yeah.
police, it actually should be pronounced policy, right? So they're telling us right there, these are
Yeah.
policy enforcers, and there's only
Wow.
two things that police are can do. One is they protect the state, protect the crown, and two, they generate revenue for her or him. That's their only two jobs. They're not there for you. They're protecting the crown property, which is that public security, that bond that's registered. And they're doing a good job. So we need someone to protect this three-dimensional
Yeah.
private being now, not the
Yeah.
piece of paper two-dimensional. So the
Wow.
sheriff he could re-oath bylaw officers. Boom, they're over on the right side. They would receive an honorarium payment from the treasury as opposed to a salary from the corporation. And there would be no money in the corporation because all those public securities are in the trust institution. So it will actually bankrupt the city corporations, and then towns can rebuy their corporation for $1 and re-administrate them, right? So
There it
get
is.
rid of 90% of the administration, the sunshine salaries of $300,000 for a CAO. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
So a mayor can just peel down that whole corporation. Back to your local issues are only roads, schools, food markets, whatever else you wanted. And those can be voted on democratically with your money in your town halls. I was explaining on one of my shows is that if you had $1,000, you could democratically vote that you wanted $400 of that to go towards your roads. So you wanted $200 of that to go towards your schools, and you wanted no money of that to go towards a rainbow sidewalk. Well,
Right.
there the town has democratically voted on their services using their money, not their mouth. And this is how it was supposed to be. So I'll contribute to the roads because I use them. I'm not going to contribute to this because I don't. And that goes back to having control of your say and your area. And the mayor's job is just to listen to you guys, tender out the jobs, find the best three, take them back down to town hall. You re-vote on the best three of who's doing your roads or your schools, take it back to the mayor, and then he just executes and discharges the funds, signs the contract for the area, and he takes care of all the bills. You don't get a bill from the city for your water. No,
Right. Right.
none of that. They're just reaping more and more money. A bank actually, when you have a mortgage and you in a foreclosure, they've been paid at least 5 times for that house.
Ugh.
At least 5 times that I know of. And that was, your original purchase price when they take the credit out of the account, then the double double entry of that same amount, then the securitization of that amount, then the insurance amount when you default, and the amount they get when they resell it. Like it's just like phenomenal, and that's why they got the buildings that they. We have a duty to correct this. How do
Yes.
you control the money? How do you control the money? At your local level, because that's a bank that you lost.
Yeah.
That's where you lost your bank. That's where you lost your law. That's where you lost your ability to school and educate your kids. That's where you lost your food control, your chemtrails, and your weather management. If you don't want to support weather modification, guess what? Your public security and your bond is being protected. They can't access it to fund weather modification,
That's great. So it's like a maturation of people's personal responsibility as well. Yeah.
which is the times. This is Revelations. This
That's right.
is the God returning or Jesus
Yeah.
returning. It's
Christ
no,
consciousness. Yes.
the God in you is
Yeah.
rising.
Yeah.
Jesus, if you break it down, Jesus, I believe was kind of je suis. I am without the I, right? And
Right.
then
Yeah.
whatever you put after I am is what happens. I am rich. I am poor. I am a crown
I
subject.
am
I
the
am a man.
woman. I am the woman known as Beata.
There you go. And so this is what we're going back to. And then you can establish your own moral compass and operate how you want to and do your own agreements, private agreements and covenants with
It's
who you
totally
want.
empowering. Of course, they would disempower us. Like this is re-empowering of the people. Just remembering when Trump's 2016 presidential inauguration, I'm giving the power back to the people, he said,
Yes.
you know.
He
Yeah.
also said, I've done the heavy lifting now, which
Mm,
meant that he claimed, I believe, and I could be wrong. This is how I see it. He reclaimed the public securities that were under de facto possession by the depository trust company, by the Vatican, by whatever, and he put them into safe harbor. But that's all he can do. It's up to whoever owns those to come and claim them. So
right.
my system is, why don't you get the mayor to go in and claim the area, and then people can learn how to get their, disengage on their own through town hall educations. But in the meantime, you've got your security out of the system, you've got your money out of the system, you've got control of it, and you're off of the agenda. So we're not having to run behind the agenda while people learn about this, because people just realize what the Canada structure was, and that was
Right.
just a year ago.
Yeah.
So you're going
Exactly.
to try to educate 40 million people? No,
No.
you change the system, correct the jurisdiction, and then people can get educated if they want. Maybe they
If
don't
they
want to learn
want.
about the straw man. They won't need to.
No.
It's a legal system they don't belong in. It wasn't made for them. It's not built for them, but you need a proxy to speak to it. A mayor acts as a bridge between the island, and the legal, lawless, you know, other island. And he's that bridge that helps you live privately, but act publicly as well, and keep the two separated.
That's
Um,
great. That's
yeah,
good. What do
Well,
you
that,
think, RB?
well, that's pretty
he's been
amazing.
pretty
We've gone an hour and 13, and I
Yeah.
think this is a good primer for people. Once again, I'm going to
no pun intended.
exactly Sheila Hunter,
Yeah,
your,
so it's
your
not a lot
email.
that I have to teach per se. My protocol, the primer explains how the fraud got into your town from the Agenda 92 to the mayor's oath. And then I left it because I figured I would get some help from lawyers or judges. Nothing. So the protocol now walks people through all the five frauds that are happening, and then the solutions of how to exit them, from the simplest to, it's not even difficult, but it's just to a correcting where you do it on your own, and you restore another trustee. So those will explain it. But like I say, it's best if we can get somebody that's already in place, or a candidate that already wanted to be in place to do this on our behalf. They set the template. It will force every other area to do so, to unincorporate from fraud. And it's coming down the pike this year. So this is why it's a jubilee. It's because we're not receiving money like Nasara and Gasara. We're releasing debt. Where
Right.
this is a lawful redemption, an estate redemption. And I can send you actually a document that these two gentlemen did of explaining how this is a spiritual war and this is a spiritual solution of just releasing the souls, SOUL, from the SOLE corporations.
Okay.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's a great note to end on. I love that.
All
I
right.
love that. Thank you
Well,
so much. Thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate your
Thanks for
time.
having me.
no
Oh,
Yeah.
problem. So everybody go to shelaw.ca, and you can
mhm.
reach her at editor@shelaw.ca. I want to
And if you
quickly,
have a councillor or mayor, please have them contact me. I will visit anybody in Ontario and meet with them. And in 2 hours, they see my information. They know what to do. I'll get them in place. And I might go to Oshawa end of next week because the Oshawa mayor is now in trouble. And we can control this, and it'll spread like wildfire out to Alberta's and
Oh yeah,
BC's, and this is how they can get back control of their local area. So
this
thank you
is
so
great.
much for getting this out. And
thank you,
yeah,
Sheila.
it truly is exciting times.
Yeah, and
Okay.
everybody share this with your community. This is so important.
And this is Bietta's
Oh yeah, tinfoil hat lady.
info, Bietta Van
I'm a
Bergen,
subscriber.
infohatlady.com on YouTube,
Watch my
available.
subversive lecture on 9/11, which is still 9/11. Nobody's solved it yet. Well, we
Yeah.
have, but you know what I mean.
But
Yeah.
that's where you can find Bietta stuff. And of course, let me see here.
The give, send, go.
Oh, I've got whistle on. Hey,
Where's the give, send, go for
no,
your
here we go. And
tickets?
you can support me and my work. And if you want to keep seeing Beyond the Pale every Saturday night and learning more about how we can actually exit the Agenda 2030 and reclaim your sovereignty, your personal sovereignty, and your national sovereignty, and your local sovereignty, you can support me. Donate to the scroll running above. Thank you very much for all you're doing for me and supporting this broadcast, this podcast. Thank you so much, and thank you, Bietta, for showing up, and thank you, Sheila. It was for a while for some of this stuff. I've known this stuff because I've listened to Jordan Maxwell and the whole maritime law stuff. I know it all makes sense, but my whole thing was always, well, how do you enforce it? And so what came to me, and a kind of like a revelation, you enforce it through public education, through public knowledge. Once enough people know this and can
Yes.
regain it, once you have the numbers, it doesn't matter how many guns they have, you become the enforcement. And it's happened before in history, and it's going to happen again. There's always resets, and it doesn't always have to be the great reset. It can be a great awakening. So that's
Mm.
where we got to go towards. Great awakening has to hit before the great reset, and we might be able to save us this time. And thank you for joining me this week. And I'll be back next Saturday with another interesting guest. You can guarantee it. And remember, conventional wisdom can only get you so far. If you really want to know the truth, sometimes you just have to go beyond the pale.
Beyond.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good
Bye bye.
night.
Good night.